Well, my name is Jody Sarich, and I'm not currently with the university. I'm actually working in the nonprofit world. So I've recently been the director of research at international NGO called Free the Slaves, which works to combat human trafficking and modern slavery in different parts around the globe. And now I'm actually on sabbatical from my director of research position, working with another NGO called Voices for Freedom to do a 2-year-long field research writing project on forced marriage globally. So first of all, I should mention that I have a co-conspirator in this research. So Kevin Bales and I are doing this project together. And basically, we want to, first of all, learn as much as we can about the phenomenon of forced marriage and early child marriage, and specifically where that phenomena intersects with modern slavery. So, even in our own anti-slavery movement, we don't often talk about forced marriage. We don't often talk about that condition of life that's so similar to so many modern slavery forms we see. And so we're looking at it's really a kind of a global survey of China, Thailand, Afghanistan, Egypt, Democratic Republic of Congo, parts of Europe, and South America to see where this is happening and where we can say that it's slavery that's happening and not simply a cultural form of marriage. I was in the Democratic Republic of Congo last spring and had the opportunity to interview many women who came out in by the dozens to speak, hoping for their voices to be heard. And one finding that I realized through interviewing so many of these women is that there's the initial abuse, and in some cases I think true enslavement of women that's happening when the forced marriage occurs. But something that I hadn't considered until I'd spoken to these women is that because they found it so hard to escape, because the bride wealth had been paid to their parents, and their parents couldn't or didn't want to pay it back, and so they had no support whatsoever if they decided to leave this situation, they would find themselves in positions that were vulnerable to other forms of trafficking. That could be, exploited by restaurant owners to be forcibly prostituted, could be trafficked into other forms of sexual slavery. So the forced marriage itself, it's an interesting question that many people are grappling with of is that forced marriage slavery? But the most, surprising detail to come out of that particular set of interviews is just how the forced marriage itself leads one to be vulnerable to be a modern slave after they decide to seek freedom. Well, I'm not sure if there is a normal marriage. I'm not sure what normal marriage might mean, only because it takes so many different forms in so many different ways. And normal by whose perspective? I think one of the most important things for all of us to consider as we think about this issue of forced marriage is that it is distinct from arranged marriage. It is. If there's a large continuum of the subjugation of women within marriage, or the lack of choice, or the existence of coercion as one gets married, there is forced marriage, and I think there is true enslavement at the end of that. But it is a continuum, ranging from the most extreme forms of violence to force a girl into that marriage to things that even in American culture we would think of as normal, which is parents really wanting you to date, this man because he can really provide for you, and feeling coercion because that's what your parents want, right? So, it's more of a continuum than I think it is about being normal or abnormal.